Welcome to day 29 of the query folding challenge. For today's challenge, we're instructed to partition the table based on the year of the invoice date key, and we are to use the wide world importers database and the sale table. So let's head over to Power BI. The first step, as usual, is to connect to the data source. Go to the database and select the table that you want to work with. Click on OK. Then click on OK to import the data. We want to partition this table based on the number of years in this column. So we need, we need a means to count the number of years, right? So let's focus on this invoice date key column. So what we would like to do here is to, as invoice date key, convert that column to a list. If we have the column as a list, it means that we can now extract the years from this list. So we use a list transform function. List transform. We want to check each value and extract the year from the date. And finally, let me see. And finally, we want to make sure that we are returning a list of distinct values. We want to remove all duplicates so that the years are not duplicated. 2013, 16, 14, and 15. And finally, we want to count the values. List count. So this tells us that there are 4 years. Let's do number of partitions. Number of, or we can say number of years. Number of years is fine. So we have the number of years to be 4. Up next, we would want to use the table.Partition function. So if you look up the function, you see that the function takes in a table, a column name as text, the number of groups. This is why it was important we counted the number of years, and finally a hash function, right? So let's go back to our query. And something else I also learned recently is that the way I went online to read about the function, right, you can actually read about the function here. All you have to do is just call the function, type the name of the function you want to read more about without this bracket. Just call the function like this, and you're going to get detailed information about what you should pass into the function. I think it's more helpful than going online to read. Sometimes get basic information here, you also get an example. This is basically what you see in documentation. So yeah. So what we can Control C. So what we can do now is to specify the table. We know that the name of the table is stored in fact sale. Then the name of the column we want to use to partition our data is the invoice date key, and the number of groups. Remember, the number of groups now will be the number of years. How many years do we have? So we use a number of years. And finally, while we have passed the invoice date key to this function, it doesn't know how to treat the partitioning. For example, now we said it should split it into, based on the number of years, into 4 different groups. But how will this function know how to convert this invoice date key to years? They need to split it into 4 different ways. So we need to specify a method, a function that would guide it on what to do. Based on the situation you're working with, the function you may want to use may be something different. I wanted to show you that. So what we use here is a date year. So what this function is going to do is to go to this invoice column and extract the year from this column, and it's going to count the number of years, which is why it's important we don't hard code the values, because if the number of years should change, you want this value to be dynamic. Then click on OK. You realize now that this function was able to take the table and split it into 4 different years. Remember, we said 4 years, and it was able to extract this based on the date.year function, which converts this, which extracts what's it called? Which extracts the year from this date. So in other cases, you may not need to do date.year. You can just do maybe each then underscore based on the previous example that we've done. If I should look at this, you realize that we have the data for which year here. This is the data for 2016. If you should check this step, you'll see that this is the data for 2013, different year. Each year now sits in a table, in a separate table. So we can rename this into partition tables. How do you spell this? Partition tables. Yeah. So this is what it means to partition a table. But this particular one is this result is not readable, right? Query folding will stop working at this step. So for us to ensure that query folding is still working, but we still have our different partitions, you can use a table.combine function. What this does is just create a join, right? That joins everything together. So not a join, what's the word for it? A union in SQL, for example. So you have the table for 2016, then you have the table for 2014, 2015, and so on and so forth. So if you should view the query now, you see that you have, this is one of the tables, which unions another table, that unions another table, and finally the last table. You get right? And you see where that function we passed into the table partition function, the function we passed where we say date.year. You realize now it is extracting the year and making sure that it gives us the exact year that we want to work with. So this is really amazing. So let me call this combine tables. Combine tables. So with this, we've been able to solve the challenge for today. So just one more day to go. And thank you to everyone who has subscribed. A big thanks to everyone who has commented, shared this video. I really appreciate. So by tomorrow, I'll also be uploading a video on customer cohort and retention analysis. It's going to be like a part one in the series where I show you basic and easy, simple steps. You don't need complex formulas. You don't need to learn the whole DAX in the world to be able to perform customer cohort and retention analysis in Power BI. I'll just show you basic steps to take from data preparation to data modeling and creating your cohort metrics and cohort trend lines. Just basic, simple things that you can learn and replicate elsewhere in your business, your work, and personal life. So thank you. Don't forget to like the video. Don't forget to subscribe and share the video with your friends. If you have questions, drop them in the comment section. See you tomorrow. I'm super excited.